So my name's Lydia Andrew and I'm the audio director for Assassin's Creed Syndicate, working out of the Quebec studio in Canada. So I've actually worked for Ubisoft for a few years and I've worked on a few different Assassins. I was working in France, working on the multiplayer versions for Assassin's Creed 3 and 4. And then I moved on to Unity, and after Unity I was asked if I'd be interested in working on Syndicate and going to the Quebec City studio to work with them, which is great because I was a fan of the franchise before I worked on it. So it's a really nice opportunity, especially for me because I originally come from London. It's a great opportunity to work on Assassin's Creed and work on Assassin's Creed set in London. It's a perfect combination. I think most people that have played Assassin's Creed before are used to the idea that we often have music as composed music in the score of the game, but we also have music that we call source music in the world. So, for instance, in Black Flag, people will probably remember the sea shanties that we had, the songs you heard in the taverns. The same in Unity, we had music in the world. For Assassin's Creed Syndicate, because London was such a vibrant city, such a busy city, and music was a huge part of the experience of that city. Plus the Victorian era is a very rich era for the birth of really commercial music halls everywhere, lots and lots of theatres, recitals, a lot of classical music as well. We really felt it was a great opportunity. And for me as well, I had a lot of songs. I kind of remembered bits of songs, tunes, different words, so that when we started working on the game, we really started to mine into what was happening in classical music at the time, what was happening in recitals or in music hall or in the kind of folk songs that were sung in the pubs or in the streets. And the team and I, plus a musicologist who's a guy who's a professor of musicology in the UK, worked together to build a list of, what were the most popular songs in 1868. Where did those songs come from? Irish immigrants were bringing their music with them, Scottish immigrants or immigrants from the north of England were bringing their music with them to London. And then looking at the different boroughs of London, we started thinking about, well, these songs fit really nicely with the people that would have lived in that area or worked in that area. And these would work really nicely in the daytime or in the nighttime. So we chose songs for each borough and then a specific song for each borough that we felt said something about the personality. For example, earlier I was talking about Champagne Charlie, where the song is saying, Champagne Charlie is my name and champagne drinking is my game. And you're like, oh, cool, well, the City of London, they drink a lot of champagne. We love the words, it's a really fun song. Let's put that in there. And then we worked with our composer to mix those songs into the score as well. So when you're exploring the world or when you're in a particular activity in a mission, you hear the textures or the tunes or sometimes even bits of the words mixed in. And it also, because there's so many different kinds of boroughs, from very industrial to very green kind of parks in the more upper class areas, there's a really great opportunity to pick these very different songs. So actually it was really fun. It was really, really fun and we really enjoyed it. And now, guys I work with who didn't have any knowledge of Victorian London music, I hear them humming the tunes to themselves and stuff. So it's really cool. No, it works, which is good. No, it's nice because I think obviously we've got our main missions in the game and people may be following the story or they're following the missions, but you're also spending a lot of time in the missions. For example, if you're a stealth player, you might be moving through the world much more slowly, or maybe you're on a carriage and you're racing through the world, but when you come to a stop, maybe there's a band there or there's someone singing or you hear some singing or some music coming out of a building, and it gives a bit of a texture, a bit of a different flavour to the experience. And then if you're exploring the open world, you've got the time to take going around, hearing the different pieces of music, seeing the different kinds of musicians. We've got a barrel organ, in the game as well. So you've got people standing on a street corner with the barrel organ, and that's really fun because for me that is a real sound of the Victorian era of the 18th century is that kind of barrel organ sound. And hopefully people, you know, start to build a picture of the environments through the music. But even if they don't, the fact that it's there and it's adding a colour and a flavour, or as you said, you know, you kind of hear a bit and think, oh, I wonder what that is. That's also nice. It's an adventure. It's an adventure in the city. So if you see all of it, great. If you just see some of it, also fine. It's very multi-layered. There's many, many things to consider, and I've been very fortunate to work with a really talented team of people, and it is a real team effort because you are looking at all the ambiences that need to be made and placed everywhere in the city. You're looking at all the different crowd characters, all the different kinds of interactions they can have, all the AI, everything AI can say to the player, every interaction the player's having with them. You've got new vehicles in the game, which has been really exciting. All the carriages, the different kinds of carriages, and also the steam trains, which are have such an iconic sound. You know, people know steam trains from the way they sound. So looking at those, and we did special recordings for those and for carriages. And then on top of that, you've got the music, you've got the boats on the river, and specific sounds like the bells of Big Ben, or the bells of the Palace of Westminster, Big Ben, the famous bell. And so there's lots and lots of layers of sound in there, and it's trying to really immerse the player in the feeling of being in London, and also to give them then the very specific feedback where you've got the heads up on the screen, or the GUI for the player to give them feedback. And then on top of that, we also have all of the player navigation, so climbing, running, jumping, using the rope launcher, and also the whole combat system with new weapons. So it's layers and layers and layers, and putting those together to make it feel like the world that Evie and Jacob are exploring together. So we have a really talented group of script writers who were working together on Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and we also had historians that were helping them in doing research on authenticity of the language, authenticity of certain phrases, things like, you know, when people are swearing, what words did they use then that are different to now, for example? And then we're also looking at the different layers of society. So how does someone who's really, really working class speak, and how do they speak to one another? And how is that different to if they were speaking to an upper class person or the boss of their factory or something like that? And we're also, when we're looking for actors and we're looking at the locations, we're also thinking about where does this character come from. For example, we have characters that are from India in the game, so we're looking at, okay, that's a really interesting different character from a very different place. How do they speak? What accent should they have? It adds a real richness to the game. And so within the crowd, you've got different classes of people, different backgrounds of people. Within the AI, even with having the two player characters, a male and a female player character, that's really nice because Evie's way of speaking and her personality is very different to Jacob, even though they're twins. So you get quite a richness, and working closely with the historians and working very closely, obviously, with the script writers, I feel we've achieved a very nice mixture of the different kinds of voices that you could hear in London at that point. So, yeah. That's a really good question. It's a really interesting question. One of the things we have tried to do with this game is to, because it's the first, we think of it as the first really modern Assassin's Creed, because it's only just over 100 years ago from where we are now, and we've got the Industrial Revolution and we've got the carriages and the steam trains. It feels quite connected to us, and London, a lot of London still looks very much like it did. So we we're trying to make it a more modern game, and the way the characters interacted, again, having Evie and Jacob, they have quite a lot of, you know, brother-sister kind of rivalry and jokes between one another. So we were trying to give it that little bit of bounce, a little bit of kind of back and forth between the characters. And also, British comedy and a British way of talking is quite famous around the world, in America, in Canada as well, where some of the writers came from. They know English comedians, they know the kind of Monty Python tradition, all those kind of things. And we also had at least one writer on the team, a couple of writers who came from the UK, and one of them was reviewing a lot of the work in terms of just giving it that extra flavour, that extra twist, either in the language or in the way people were talking to one another. And also, being set in London, there is a kind of slightly cheeky, slightly, you know, having a bit of a joke with people, or, you know, laughing with people. So there is some of that in the game, and quite light-hearted, but obviously there's also an arc in the story. And there's more dramatic parts of the story, parts where more serious things are happening, and that's reflected. It's the contrast, really. But the writers did a really great job, and working with the historians as well, I think they've really produced something that's very accessible, but also historically accurate and fun, really fun.